Hey, Jason.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Well, welcome, everybody. We are so honored that you're all with us today to celebrate the fourth episode of the Iowa BizCast. This is a monthly installment from the Iowa Business Council, bringing you interviews with top business leaders of the Iowa Business Council, really focused in on ways in which Iowa's leading companies are impacting, obviously, not just the business world, but the world around them and the communities and the philanthropic areas that they're involved with in Iowa in general. So we're really excited today to bring a great leader of Iowa business and philanthropy and community involvement, Jason Andringa. Jason's the president and CEO of the Vermeer Corporation, a global industrial and agricultural equipment manufacturing company right here in Iowa, headquartered in Pella, Iowa. Jason has been with the company since 2005, and before that was an engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he holds degrees in engineering from Calvin College in Michigan, and also has completed advanced degrees at MIT in a Master of Aeronautics and Astronautics and an MBA from USC, University of Southern California. So as I was joking with Jason earlier, this is the first time the Iowa BizCast has hosted a real live rocket scientist. So thank you, Jason, for gracing us today. We're really excited for this interview, and thanks for all your leadership and involvement with the Iowa Business Council.
Thank you, Joe. Great to be here. Proud to be in Iowa business, proud to be part of Iowa Business Council. Happy to be with you.
Great. Well, Jason, let's just start off with a quick introduction of Vermeer, the history of the company, what it is today, and as you celebrate a 75th birthday of the company this year.
We have enjoyed for the really entire last 12 months celebrating our 75th year of existence. Our fiscal year actually just wrapped up at the end of last week. So we now have jumped into fiscal year 2024. So we just last week, Friday, wrapped up our 75th year in existence. Definitely a full year of celebration. Very proud to be headquartered in Pella, Iowa for our entire 75 years. Glad to be an Iowa company. I said over and over this year, not only am I incredibly proud of our 75-year heritage, proud to be the third generation family member of the company my grandfather started. His name is on the sides of the buildings. His name is on the equipment we manufacture, but also very proud that my immediate predecessor in the role of CEO was my mother, Mary Andringa, who was a previous chair of the Iowa Business Council. So it's not only very proud of the heritage of Vermeer, but even more enthusiastic about the future that we have in front of us.
You guys have such a rich history of that, and what an amazing accomplishment it's been. And as you mentioned, you've been in Pella since the very beginning, but you've expanded tremendously since that time, obviously throughout the state of Iowa and around our country, but also across the globe. So would be interested, how do you go about engaging with team members all throughout your facilities, especially during the pandemic when travel was non-existent and you had facilities all over the globe and in hot spots during the pandemic?
Great question. And, one that we've been trying to learn from and optimize for years, but certainly one of the positives that came out of the pandemic, I believe, is just a much greater comfort level with virtual meetings like this one. Just jumping on a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting is, much more prevalent and comfortable now than it was before the pandemic. But as I mentioned, Vermeer, our headquarters has always been in Pella, Iowa. We anticipate our headquarters being in Pella, Iowa for as far into the future as you can possibly foresee. But over the last few years in particular, we do have other manufacturing facilities. In the United States now, we have 5 different manufacturing facilities other than Pella. 2 of those are in Iowa. So of our 6 total manufacturing facilities. Half of them are in Iowa, and of course the flagship in Pella. But that is something I think a lot about, is making sure that we have the same culture, the same values, the same vision in all Vermeer facilities. Not only our 3 facilities in Iowa, but across the country, and then frankly around the world as well. There's 2 places outside the United States that we manufacture, and then we have other non-production related facilities as well. One of which is also in Iowa, in Ames at the Iowa State Research Park.
Yeah, a great partnership there with Iowa State University, and really
Yep.
help build that pipeline that you guys certainly need. Jason, you mentioned it. Culture has always been the bedrock of Vermeer's success, and I've always just been so impressed anytime I visit you or your facilities with just the engagement that you have around those facilities, and it speaks to the resiliency of the company too. The company enduring company culture, obviously prevalent during the tornado, I guess 5 or 6 years ago now, and all the other things that you've endured as CEO, but you have long tenured employees who are just absolutely bought into that vision of the organization that you set. How do you go about setting that tone, and how do you sustain it through multiple generations? As you mentioned, you're now the 3rd generation at the helm.
We talk about our timeless values, which we call the 4 Ps. My mother, once again, former chair of Iowa Business Council, former CEO of Vermeer, she was very instrumental in developing those 4 Ps. The way that I like to depict them is with principles at the center, biblical principles, fundamentally the golden rule, treating other people like you want to be treated yourself. I like to show people as the top P. And you referenced the tornado, and you were exactly right. It was 5 to 6 years ago. It was the summer of 2018. And I often will talk about the fact that after the tornado, we suffered massive facility loss. We had about 400 personal vehicles that were destroyed. But the miracle on the Vermeer Mile, or the Vermiracle, was that we had no loss of human life, no serious physical injuries. And that night, I was able to say, we're going to come back better and stronger than ever before because we have all of our people. And that of course, totally proved to be the case. Facilities could be replaced, and they were better than ever. And, we had everything we needed to come back better and stronger because we had the people that we have. So those to me are the 2 most important Ps: principles and people. And then we also talk about product. For sure, our number 1 brand pillar is innovative products for the unique markets that we serve. And then the final P is profit. And we are a for-profit company, and we don't shy away at all from the fundamental need to be profitable over a long period of time so that you can reinvest back in the business. And the tornado was another example where we had a very good relationship with our insurer, and we were treated fairly by our insurer after the tornado. But we also were able to reinvest, tens of millions of dollars more of our own money into the rebuild because of being, a long-term profitable company. So the first thing I would point to is the 4 Ps, timeless values. And then the second thing I would point to is just having a long-term orientation, which I think is one of the advantages of being a privately held company. It's, we care about the month, we care about the quarter, we care about the year, but I often will say I am a lot more concerned about what Vermeer looks like 10 years from now than what we look like 1 year from now. And I say that to Vermeer team members all the time. And, I think that helps drive the culture as well, to just say, hey, we're gonna make the right decisions for the long term.
You're so right. I mean, taking that long-term view is absolutely essential in any organization. And I'm appreciative of the fact that you're able to proclaim that making a profit is good, right? This is the Iowa Business Council, after all. This is a pro-capitalistic organization. You're so right. Engaging in those ideals is what makes not only, the company great, the industry great, but what separates America from any other country in the world, and why we're able to invest and do so many different things, not just for our own communities, but all around the country and the globe as well. So good on
Yeah.
you for embracing that. You know, you've taken a series of steps recently to increase the workforce capacity to capture talent in specific areas. For example, just a few weeks ago, I toured your Des Moines facility that you've recently opened. You're engaging heavily within the Pella school systems there locally. What other strategies are you employing to capture workforce so that you can continue to expand in Iowa in the ways that you hope to?
I think getting the workforce we need is maybe getting just a little bit easier. I for sure wouldn't say it's easy yet, but it's maybe slightly easier. So yeah, I would say once the supply chain crisis kind of started to ease off, maybe 18 months ago, for the next 12 months after that, it was the workforce crisis. Just, impossible to get the team members we needed to build the machines that we had demand for. So well before the labor crisis, Vermeer has had kind of an all of the above approach to trying to build our team now and also in the future. So Vermeer has a long heritage of being involved with the local schools. We have grade school kids that come to Vermeer for our manufacturing day every year, and we try to dispel outdated stereotypes of what current manufacturing looks like. Instead of manufacturing being dark, dirty, and dangerous, which is what I think the stereotype has been unfortunately absorbed by maybe the previous generation of people. The reality is that manufacturing at Vermeer in the United States, in Iowa, it's clean, it's high tech, it's good paying jobs. It is an opportunity to start a career where if you have an attitude of being a lifelong learner, you can have an incredibly engaging, enjoyable, lucrative career in manufacturing. So we're involved in grade schools right up through high schools. I often will say that at Vermeer, we need everyone from the kid who just graduated high school last week, and he's going to come to Vermeer this week, and he has an attitude of being a hard worker and a lifelong learner. We will take that person and we will train them for their first job. And as long as they are willing to keep learning, they can just keep progressing through the company. So start with a high school graduate. We for sure need lots of people that come out of community colleges. I would encourage anyone graduating from high school to consider at least community college. We're big fans of the community colleges in Iowa. There's a lot of Vermeer team members that come from the community colleges in Iowa and volunteer to help. We donate, equipment that we're no longer using at Vermeer to community colleges so that students can learn on it. We for sure need lots of 4-year degreed people. We have a very strong relationship with Iowa State, particularly when it comes to interns and engineers. We look forward to hiring from every school in Iowa and outside of Iowa. Central College is, of course, based right here in Pella. And then honestly, at Vermeer, we need people all the way up through training as PhD level material scientists, engineers, et cetera. So we literally need everyone from the high school graduate to the PhD level material scientists and everywhere in between. And we have a very long heritage of trying to build those relationships from an early age, so that we can continue to build our workforce now and into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the future, and you sort of touched on this just a minute ago, talking about being a lifelong learner and being ready to learn and work hard. But as you think about the next 5 or 10 years, what sort of things are you looking at from a hiring capacity with all the new technologies that are going on? Are you prioritizing any sort of hiring area over the next 5 years that you think Vermeer is really going to need? And what sort of areas are those, or what sort of other skill sets are you looking and when you think long term?
For sure, over the last few years, we've been hiring very heavily in software engineers, systems engineers, electrical engineers. I like to say oftentimes that Vermeer obviously has a very solid heritage with regards to mechanical engineers and ag engineers, and we're going to need a lot of those skill sets going forward as well. But machines have gotten to the point where the brains on the machines are very capable and impressive. And designing the brains on the machines and designing kind of the full telematics job site system is kind of a disproportionate opportunity right now. So we've been hiring very heavily in those fields, and we think we now have kind of more appropriately leveled the numbers of mechanical engineers, but also electric, software, systems engineers at Vermeer. So that's been a very heavy thrust for us recently, but for sure, just bringing on things like automation into the production environment at an appropriate level. If you take it on too fast, the organization can't absorb it. But if you bring on automation at kind of the appropriate cadence, it's not only is it not threatening to our human workforce, it's actually very motivating and encouraging to our human workforce. Because frankly, the struggles that we have had hiring people, if someone's been working at Vermeer and they can count on a welding robot to get them the weldments that they need for their station on assembly, and maybe they can count on an autonomous guided vehicle to bring central receiving components to them, they're pretty happy to know that they're dependent on a welding robot and an autonomous guided vehicle to get them their work, as opposed to a person who they had just kind of gotten used to that person, and then that person resigned and went and worked someplace else, and now they have to get used to another person in that role. So that's definitely a big effort for us as well. And the community colleges have done really an incredible job of quickly building up their capabilities to turn out those skills. People who program the robotic welding machines, people who program the autonomous guided vehicles. We're going to start doing some autonomous paint experimentation, and the jobs that integrate those systems into a production environment are very important and gratifying and intellectually stimulating jobs.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and that partnership with the community colleges is absolutely critical, and the four-year institutions as well. But
You bet.
the fact that we're able to engage with them and share with them through the Iowa Business Council and the Business Education Alliance on, hey, what you're facing in the industry, and then how can we work together to make sure that pipeline is fully tuned and aware of what the business needs are. That's a great example of how all that connects into the workforce.
Yeah.
As you think about, again, hiring and workforce is our top issue at the Business Council, right? The workforce issues in our state. As you think about recruiting more people into Vermeer, specifically Pella, what are your selling points for people as you bring new folks in, either to move into Pella, or if you're recruiting them from out of state? What are some of the selling points that you would share about living in Iowa, raising a family in Iowa? What are your go-tos in that regard?
We've been based in Pella for 75 years. And, so we have a 75-year heritage being based in Pella, and we're now starting our next 75 years of being based in Pella and located in Iowa. And there are a lot of positives about living in Iowa in general and living in a town like Pella in specific. Terrific school systems, just, terrific place to raise a family, favorable place to have a business. Not only is, Vermeer based here in Pella, but fellow Iowa Business Council Representative Pella Corp is also, of course, in Pella. So they even have a much longer history in Pella than we do. So it's the state is wonderful as far as becoming more and more competitive in comparison to the other 50 states. Just in general, great work ethic. I think that goes back to the agricultural heritage of the state. Hey, we're constantly hiring people in Pella, but as you mentioned earlier, we opened our first facility in Des Moines, and we're very enthusiastic about that as well. I mean, we could have opened another facility somewhere else, some other state, but we knew that by opening a facility in Des Moines, hopefully the value of the Vermeer brand translates well to Des Moines. And once again, it's that opportunity to continue to build a team of Iowans. And not only are we proud of the Iowans that are already here, but certainly encourage people that live outside the state of Iowa that are looking for maybe a more affordable place to live, a better place to raise their kids, maybe longer term oriented company to work for. That Iowa is a great place, Pella is a great place, Vermeer is a great place.
Yeah. So appreciative of you sharing that. I mean, it's a whole system, right? And part of that system is the community and philanthropic efforts. And as we were mentioning at the top of the program, your ability to be profitable and make money is enables you to invest in your community, whether that community is in Pella or Des Moines or one of the other facilities, communities in Iowa. Vermeer Corporation, your founding family has done so much for the state and for your local communities. I'm curious, could you just speak to that? Whether it's the volunteer roles, the corporate philanthropy, what's your guiding philosophy as you engage your business in community and philanthropic efforts?
Vermeer's had a charitable foundation for decades. My mom could probably give a better history of the charitable foundation, but the legends that I've heard, which I'm guessing are true, in the early days, my grandfather invented the round baler more than 50 years ago, and felt compelled to use some of those financial gains philanthropically. And my grandfather is a product of the Great Depression, so he actually took out a loan to fund the original Vermeer Charitable Foundation. Wow. And if you know my grandfather, to think that he would take out a loan, he must have really felt strongly about it. And so we have a many decade heritage of our charitable foundation, and we dedicate a certain amount of money, a certain percentage of our profit every year into our charitable foundation. It's a pretty generous and robust amount. And we're really proud of it. We really want to support Pella, of course, primarily, but the other communities that our team members come from. It's only about a quarter of our team members that come to work in Pella that actually have a Pella address. Yeah. A lot of our team members come from other surrounding communities, and we care about those communities as well, very, very much. So, Pella is kind of the primary recipient of our, philanthropic heritage and, current philanthropy. But we're also very concerned about other communities and, providing scholarships for, children and grandchildren of Vermeer team members. All of those things are very important to us.
Just incredible. You're such a model corporate citizen, right? I mean, and I know that other companies have taken notice of that and look to you as as they set up their own foundations and charitable organizations. So good on you all for leading in that capacity. It's definitely noticed far and wide. Jason, I want to spend our remaining time kind of taking a deeper dive into how you think and what you do to prepare yourself to lead a great organization like the Vermeer Corporation. How you consume news, what you're reading, maybe even what you're watching. I think that's just really interesting to get a sense of how Iowa's leading CEOs are wired. And so let's start with this. What book are you currently reading, or what have you recently finished reading that you would recommend, that you enjoy, that you would feel comfortable enough recommending to somebody? No judgment if it's something crazy.
Yeah, no worries. So, I definitely read some business books, but for me, I definitely derive more value in reading kind of broadly among the topics of history, science, and technology. So, one that I'd bring up, and I should have come prepared with the title, but I recently read a book about the history of mechanical timekeeping. And I love mechanical watches. I love the 400-year history of mechanical timekeeping. It's really a remarkable history, and a lot of lessons can be learned. Just one example is how Switzerland kind of usurped the United Kingdom to become the center of the world from the perspective of mechanical timekeeping, and then quartz watches nearly obliterated mechanical timekeeping in Switzerland, and just kind of a small kernel of the mechanical timekeeping industry in Switzerland rebranded themselves and has really kind of soared now, as mechanical watches are more jewelry than necessarily timekeepers. So that was a book I read recently, and those are the type of things that I tend to come across. I actually downloaded 3 books to my Kindle a few months ago that have to do with the history of timekeeping. And the middle one was the one about the history of mechanical timekeeping, which was really fascinating. But as far as reading beyond that, as far as really thinking about trends in business thought, I really like Harvard Business Review a lot. I probably find that more valuable than reading most business books that are out there. On a daily basis, I read the Wall Street Journal. I read news blurbs, daily news blurbs from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Economist. So I really try to read fairly broadly to try to get a fairly level-headed overall view. On a weekly basis, I read the magazine called The Week. So yeah, that's just a few of the things that I read. I honestly love ingesting information, whether it's sitting in a meeting or whether it's reading. I love to ingest information. And for me, attempting to synthesize what I'm reading and analyze how it could affect Vermeer now or in the future is something I thoroughly enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's great. The other side of that medium is, of course, watching and receiving news that way. Are you watching anything on Netflix or Amazon Prime that you're proud to share today, or do you do any digital consumption in that area as well?
Probably not a ton on a regular basis. I don't have a Netflix subscription. I think maybe my wife and kids do, but I don't use it. We do have an Amazon Prime subscription, and I'll watch some movies on that. But what I typically do is there's several shows on Iowa Public Television that I actually record, and then I watch it while I exercise. And of course, the advantage of shows on Iowa Public Television is they don't have commercials.
Yeah.
So on a weekly basis, I watch Washington Week. I watch Market to Market.
Yep.
I got to be interviewed on Market to Market, and I was enthusiastic about that because I'd been watching Market to Market for years before. I watch Nova shows. I watch BBC NewsHour. So those are just kind of a smattering of things that I watch while I exercise, 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned some of the business publications, Harvard Business Review,
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal. How do you stay on top of industry trends? Those are
Oh
obviously
yeah, I should have
general,
mentioned that.
but industry trends to your specific area. How do you consume that? Newsletters? What's that intake like?
Yeah, definitely should have mentioned that as well. So in addition to Iowa Business Council, I serve on the board of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, and that's very focused on the markets that we serve and the type of work that we do. And then more broadly than that, I serve on the board of the National Association of Manufacturers, and that's definitely a more broad association that involves all types of manufacturing, not just machinery. But both of those organizations send out regular updates that pertain to the industry. So I probably get at least 2 or 3 emails a day from both of them, and then go to 2 or 3 meetings per year for both of them, and that's really, really very helpful. And for a company of Vermeer size, being affiliated with AEM or NAM is very helpful from kind of an advocacy perspective. The joint voice of all of the equipment manufacturers and the joint voice of all the manufacturers in the United States, and within Iowa, the joint voice of the Iowa Business Council is just a really good way to stay informed, and then also help elected officials understand how different dynamics could affect manufacturers.
Right. It's an important voice to get out there for sure.
Yeah.
Jason, thanks so much for your time today. We're at the time to close, but would welcome your final thoughts to our audience today.
Just a pleasure to be with you, Joe, and the audience today, and proud to be an Iowa company, and feel at this point very optimistic about what we can do as an Iowa company to continue to provide great careers to Iowans in Pella and in Des Moines. We also have a facility in Griswold, and then we have a facility in Ames. So we're very proud to be an Iowa-based company.
Well, that's great, Jason. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for your leadership, not only at the Iowa Business Council, but within the state of Iowa as well. Your voice is very much needed in our society today. So thank you all so much for your involvement currently and in the future as well. We really look forward to working with you for a long time to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Likewise. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in today.